All right, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today here in person. Oh my goodness. I'm Nicole Minka, the recruiting manager at Crystal Dynamics, and I'm gonna be your moderator for the panel today. So welcome to our panel, Tips from the Trenches. In this panel, we will be talking about hiring in the gaming industry. So there's hundreds of job openings in the gaming industry right now, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. We'll be looking at this from a few different sides. Those who are looking to get into games, those who are looking to make a shift, maybe from one studio to another or different types of industries, and then tips for hiring for your own team if you're a hiring manager. So how I want to start this off is just kind of getting a feel for who's out there in the room at the moment. So how many people here are already employed at a game development studio, AR, VR? Okay, perfect. And then re-raise your hands if you are somebody that has helped interview on your team. Have you been that person before? All right, and then keep your hands up if you're the hiring manager, like the one calling the shots, making decisions. Okay. And is there anybody here that's looking to break into the industry, or students? All right, all right. And this is for both hiring managers and for those who are looking for work. Have you ever partnered with a recruiter on either side to help you in that search, either for a person or for yourself? Okay, just a few. So now we'll move on to our panel. So we have a mix of internal recruiters, agency recruiters, and hiring managers. So the recruiters play a critical role in building the teams of successful studios, as do the hiring managers that they partner with to build those strong teams. So what does that entail? What happens when a job gets posted? As a hiring manager, how do you get strong applicants? How do you, as an applicant, make sure that your resume stands out from the bunch? So maybe you've got interviews, we'll touch a bit on that. How do you make sure that those run smoothly? And then maybe it's time to make an offer. What do you need to know so that things don't fall apart at the end? So hear what it is from people in the trenches, and we will kick things off with our panelists. So first up, we have Nelly Hughes, who is the design director at Xbox Game Studios Publishing. Nelly, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm a 17-year game design veteran who's done all types of design, including game design, design leadership, and design management. Along that road, I've done lots of departmental hiring. I'm here today because one of my loves is just to help folks break into the industry and help folks who are experienced get the jobs that they're going for.
Awesome. It is nice to have you here, Nelly.
Thank you.
Next, we have Alejandra Rodriguez down at the end, who is a principal recruiter at Probably Monsters. Alejandra?
Thank you. My name is Alejandra Rodriguez, and I'm the recruiter supporting Probably Monsters and the plethora of studios within our org. It is my goal to support and encourage an environment that is inclusive, professional, respectful to all within. Before, Probably Monsters used to be Arenit, 343, Google Mobile, WB for a bit. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Alejandra. And before I move on to the next two panelists, I want to point out that Nelly, Alejandra, and myself work internally at game development studios. The following panelists are from an agency, so they support studios externally. So Iris Moon, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, but can you also tell us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. First of all, it's great to see everybody back in person. Thanks for coming to our panel. I'm Iris Moon. I'm the managing director at GG Locators. If you haven't heard of us or you haven't heard from me on LinkedIn, we're a boutique staffing firm, and we specialize in recruitment for the video game industry. We, unlike Nicole, Nelly, and Alejandro, we don't work for one studio. We partner with multiple studios across this industry to help them fill all types of roles within the gaming industry. Part of the reason a studio would reach out to us is, there's multiple reasons, but some of the main ones are maybe they don't have an internal recruiting firm or an internal recruiting team. They might not have the capacity, if they do have an internal team, to fill all the roles that are on their plate, especially in the current market. Or they might be ramping up to grow the studio excessively, and so they'll reach out to us and we will form a partnership and help them fill jobs.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, we have Cami, who is a recruiter at GG Locators, but has also worked at a few gaming colleges in the past. So
yeah, thanks, Nicole. Yeah, it's really great to see you guys in person. You have no idea. So yes, I work at GG Locators, but I have spent 12 plus years, 15 years, I've lost track now, working at colleges like Full Sail, working in the career track, helping coach students with resumes, portfolios, soft skills, whatever it takes to prepare them to get into the industry. But also my job was to build relationships with the industry so they would look to me or our school when they're looking to hire. So relationships are really critical. I've probably helped, thousands of grads get launched in their first jobs. But what's really cool is now those grads, since you heard me say 12 to 15 years, those grads now own their own studios or their leadership at Snapchat or whatever. So it's like having your children grow up. And I'm working with a lot of them now at GG Locators.
all right, so what happens first? First comes, there's a job opening. So a studio realizes that they need to hire. Now what happens? Nelly, can you tell us from your perspective?
Sure. So the first thing that I do is I work with the leads to get to know the role extremely well. I need to just buckle down and understand exactly what the short-term and the long-term goals are. And then I write a job description. And in the job description, I have to get really detailed and just kind of get down to the nitty-gritty to just, do that. Sorry. And then once I'm done with that, I hand it off to these guys and, let them kind of take over.
So on that note, Alejandro, pass it off to a recruiter.
We take your ball, and then once the team puts in a request, the hiring manager as well, for a job opening, the recruiter meets with the hiring manager to determine the needs of the studio and create a sourcing strategy to best fill this opening.
And on our side, we don't always get the ball thrown at us. Sometimes we have to go out and find the ball. But once we connect with a studio on an opening, we'll have an initial call, talk to them about their needs, find out what they're looking for, in terms of the role, in terms of candidate, a good culture fit for the studio. And then we'll typically request to hop on with the hiring manager. That way we can really dig in and know who we're going to be submitting candidates directly to. And have that relationship going, and then we get out there and start looking.
Awesome.
And I know we had a few hiring managers in the crowd as well, so I'm curious to know what sort of things are the hiring managers telling you and getting you as a recruiter set up for success. So Alejandro?
First and foremost, really, is just have a good intake meeting, right? At the beginning of the process. Really work together to have an effective recruiting strategy. Recruiter really is a force multiplier to you, and so really it's just work together in tandem to understand what it is. And so the hiring managers have a clear expectation for the studio's hiring needs and work to have keywords or anything that will help them on their search on LinkedIn or any sourcing they can have.
I always like to make sure I nail down very specifically. I like to, when I talk to our clients or the hiring managers, give me your top 3 skills that you must see with a candidate that we're presenting to them. I always like to have examples. I'm very visual, so if they can send me, a portfolio from their team so I can get an idea of the style, or a video that I can really focus on, that way I can, narrow the aperture when it comes to helping us find them the type of candidate they want.
And I'll just add one last thing. It's always really helpful if you're a hiring manager in the audience for external recruiters, if you can somehow be involved in the process. That way we can connect directly with you and really learn what you're looking for and be able to get you the right people faster.
And so, as you can hear, it's really important for the recruiters to understand the pieces of the role and the job descriptions so that they can help attract the right candidates, get the job descriptions out there so that people can apply. And then as they apply, they're talking to these candidates like yourselves. And we're hearing a lot about what's going on in the industry right now from candidates. So some of you might relate to a lot of these things, but what do you all think are some of the things that you've heard candidates are looking for?
Since COVID, a lot of it is work from home or a hybrid work situation. You need to, a lot of people are moving away from the typical tech, locations. Comp is another one. There are some companies out there that are basically taking a dump truck full of cash and kind of backing up and dumping it on people. So those are really the two biggest ones that I'm hearing right now.
Yeah, for us, remote is huge after COVID. The last 2 years, most people have gotten comfortable working from home. Most people can do their jobs from home, so a lot of people are currently looking for that. And then creative flexibility is another one. Growth opportunity is something we see a lot. We also definitely in this industry, work-life balance is huge. No more crunch. I think most studios aren't doing it anymore, so people are excited about that.
But each candidate is very unique. So I usually try to do my thinking, and listening to them. What's their motivating factor? Is it compensation? Is it working remote? Or are the growth expectations of that studio, what's their order of priority?
And honestly, really a respectful and inclusive environment.
So you mentioned inclusivity, and I just was curious if you could tell us all a little bit more about that.
Well, yes. Well, honestly, game studios are making games for diverse markets, and in order for them to make games that resonate within those markets, they really should themselves reflect that diversity within their team compositions.
So all of this happens before the job's even posted out on a website. So the hiring managers try to make it straightforward for us so that we can put that out there. And if they've got a job description already made, that makes things a little bit easier for us so that we can formulate that job description and get it out to you all. But maybe it's something that the team hasn't hired before, or maybe it's a new role or something that they haven't hired for in a long time. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that what we're putting out there to you all is in line with what the team is actually looking for. So I just want to touch a little bit more on how hiring managers and recruiters partner together to make sure that those job descriptions are out there and accurate. So Nelly, what do you all do with your team?
Lots of communication. We spend a lot of time with recruiters and going over in great detail about what the job itself is, what the goals and the needs are for the role. And, we need to be available as much as possible because, we need to just be nimble. Right now, the job market is really, really hot. And if you can't be there to answer those questions, that candidate may get away.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Honestly, it really is find previous examples of these jobs, clearly determine the specific needs of the team. For example, do you need to know Unreal? Do you have other expectations for C++? But honestly, what are the quantifiables, and let these job descriptions be as concise as they can be.
And hiring managers don't always have job descriptions from previous roles, so part of what we will do is help you write up that job description and get it posted.
And I'm a visual person. I like to see examples of the artwork, the style. I mentioned that before, and really listen to what the hiring team or studio is specifically looking for in their next candidate. A lot of listening is important.
Awesome. And I'm gonna poll the audience again really quick. So once the job's out there, you see the job description on there. I'm curious to know where you all are applying. Are you going directly to the company's website and applying on their sites? If you are, raise your hand for that. All right. What about if are you using anything like Indeed? Okay. Any other career site, Monster? How many of you are on LinkedIn keeping that updated and you're using that for networking to find jobs? Cool. All right. What about something like ArtStation? For those of you who might be artists using that. Cool. And then anywhere else, maybe like a Discord or a forum, Reddit. Well, is there anything that I haven't mentioned yet that people have done other than like events that we haven't done in 2 years?
Google.
Google. Okay. Yeah. Google Jobs. That is another.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. All right. So now that I just mentioned a whole bunch of them that once it's created and it's posted, Is there anywhere else, and Alejandra, I mentioned a lot of ones that you posted, but anywhere else you can think of?
Well, honestly, us a company, right, we post our roles in the career site, on Indeed, LinkedIn, ArtStation, but really we go into Discord, into forums. Honestly, wherever you are at, we're gonna get there eventually.
Right. We share our jobs out on socials. I'm a social media nerd. I have specific groups that I've, since my early days at Full Sail, on Facebook. There's a lot of great Facebook things going on. Also, of course, on Twitter and Discord. I have a lot of grads and friends that I reach out directly to and see if they can give me any ideas or contacts that they might share with me for the job. Yeah, friends, relationships.
Yep. Usually, I end up hitting my network, and my team usually does the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely a lot of places where we're posting the job, but I know Cammie mentioned outreach, and you're obviously talking to some recruiters here too. So we're doing the outreach and reaching out to candidates as well. So are you all finding better candidates from postings? Are you finding them somewhere else?
We are classic headhunters. We'll go out there and find the right person for the job. We do look at ArtStation. We look at a lot of portfolios, a lot of candidate background, skill sets, technical skill sets. And then another great thing about this industry is it is really intimate in a lot of ways. So we've been around for 3 years now, so we've built a lot of relationships, and just a lot of referrals come through our door from people we've either worked with or placed, or even clients we've worked with.
So I really want to underline LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a great AI. So just to give you an example, we put all our words in for the skills in the filter. It spits out to us, a list of candidates all over the country or wherever we filtered it down to. But here's my favorite part. I go to bed at night, LinkedIn's AI is still working. So when I get up in the morning, LinkedIn has populated another 40, 50 people in my search section. So honestly, I can't emphasize enough how important your LinkedIn profile. If you're seeing a job, make sure you weave those words into your profile, and just keep it active. It doesn't mean you have to post a lot of stuff. It just means keep your own profile active. So, after.
Yeah.
Well said, Cammie. Honestly, we find our best candidates within the industry communities, Discord and social media.
Yeah, so get yourself out there, network, make sure things are updated, and like they all said, the SEO on LinkedIn, that's where they're finding some of your profiles, is through those keyword searches. So, all right, we're going to move on to when we identify a candidate. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the channels that we use for finding talent, but before we do, I have one last thing about those job postings. So say a hiring manager, some of you may be out here, who don't have a recruiter, you don't have an HR team. What are some things that you can do to get more applicants, other than networking with this group?
Well, I'm going to beat the drum of LinkedIn, get a LinkedIn Pro, account, but it's a job within itself, so you really kind of need to count that into your schedule. So, I think I'm just really going to, stress that, because it's a lot of work. But, just use your network, and word of mouth is a lot of it, and just make sure to continue to, just get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, naturally, I'm going to say call GG Locators.
Yeah, we work with studios big and small. I mean, the small studios, I always have a soft spot in my heart, because I know how much energy it takes to source and pre-interview people. So if there's only one person at that studio, you have to be you want to swoop in and help them out, right? But we work with big studios too, and their hiring numbers are so huge that even their most coordinated teams can't keep up. So it's always great to be a recruiter like us.
Yeah, so as a candidate, you might be thinking, hey, what? The market's so hot, all these people are hiring, like I applied, I never heard back. If there's so few applicants and you guys are having to do all this outreach, how come nobody's answering me? So do you all have any advice for the applicants to make sure that their applications are getting noticed when they apply?
to quote our talented director of recruitment, make sure your resume looks like a job description, right? Tailor your resume to create trust within the hiring manager by aligning your experience with exactly what they're looking for. Make sure they don't have to jump and make leaps of trust in order for you to understand what you do. Use the keywords from the job description itself in your resume, right? Most resumes are first also filtered by an ATS, an AI, that really uses those keywords to filter them out and allow me to see them first.
I always, I've worked with a lot of students and grads, and I'm really a big advocate for making your resume very easy for the hiring managers. They may get 100 to 1,000 resumes. They don't have time to read everything. Make it very clear. Don't give a long objective. They don't give a rip what your objective is, right? They're there because they need to get their team up and running. So don't care about that stuff. Use bullet points. You want them to be able to skim that resume really quickly, and you want them to be able to see your skills. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get read in a resume, so make the most important stuff easy with live links. Make sure your live links work before you send that resume in. I've had a lot of resumes where I've tested a live link and it's taken, and I know that person has a great live link, but it doesn't work. So every single time, make sure those live links are working. Make it stupid easy for recruiters to help you.
And I'd like to go off of a little bit of what they said too. Applicant tracking system. Make sure that there's not a bunch of crazy graphics on your resume, because when it uploads, it's going to totally make it wonky if there's too much stuff on there. So keep it simple. And then also, if you are matching things to the job description, you want to be like, yes, I check these boxes, but also make sure that you can speak to the experience that you have. Because hiring managers are going to dig into that, and they're going to make sure that if you're saying, yes, I've done this required skill, that you actually can do it and can speak to it. So align it, but make sure that it's also staying truthful and accurate. So what about job descriptions that require portfolios? We'll go to the design director on this one.
All right, well, I guess I'm going to start kind of general and then hone in. So, make sure that your portfolio looks like you have put effort into it. Flashy sites and elaborate portfolios don't mean much if, it doesn't have the content that is good. Put your best stuff in there and only your best stuff. I got to stop saying, sorry. Take the old stuff out as you grow, keep it up to date, show versatility. If you're not sure if your best stuff is, ask others, get feedback all the time,
All the time.
Curate that shit. So, sorry, I swore. Be picky. So we're going to be picky. So you should be You should be as well. Keep it super friendly. Keep the career track that you are going for. So some of the things that I've seen, especially with people who are kind of starting out in the industry, is there's like a smorgasbord of things in there. You've got design work, you've got art stuff, and I think if you're trying to go for a couple different tracks, that you should make a different portfolio for each track you're going for, or decide, maybe what track you are going for and focus on that. If you, oh my gosh, I got lost. Anyways, yeah, that's where I was
going. That was really well said, Nelly. Thank you for that.
Yes.
To continue, make sure your art aligns with the work of the studio you want to be hired at. Your portfolio should honestly look like you already done the work that you already done the job that you're applying to do.
And it's like to kind of hone in a little bit. If you're an artist, one of my artist managers basically said, avoid the T&A. Fine art nudes are great, drawing one thing, but exploitative, creepy anime is another, and kind of just don't do that. In design, show your thought process. I want to see how you have solved problems. Write examples, postmortems on all of your examples that you're showing of, your game design stuff. And it's really important to just make sure that you have quality, not quantity. Just make that your mantra, quality, not quantity.
Absolutely.
And I know some people might be wondering, well, like, how do I make my portfolio look? How do I know what it's supposed to look like? So Alejandro, I know you touched on that a little bit, but there should be people that they can look at that work on these games or the games themselves, right? Like, can you elaborate a little bit more on how they can find what they're supposed to be?
Absolutely. I mean, it'll be very simple. Just go on LinkedIn and see who is working in the studio you want to work at. Like, see those artists that you really want to emulate or be, and look at their work. And just, if you may, reach out to them for advice, or if you're not, go on Discord or forums, and just get the advice from there too. But honestly, your work should be able to be at that caliber of those artists you aspire to be.
And let's see. So we talked a little bit about you all looking for jobs and making sure that your portfolio matches the roles that you're looking for, your skill sets match what you're looking for. But from a hiring manager perspective, I'm curious too, is there anywhere that you all can recommend that a hiring manager can look for talent? Maybe if they're not working with a recruiter, how can they find some people too? Let's see.
Who's on that?
Nelly, you want to jump into?
Is that me?
Oh, see, I'm just like, oops. You can have your team help you out. I think everywhere that I've ever worked, all of my teams have been really excited about where they've worked, so they've kind of just continued to pass on all of the job openings to their friends. They've LinkedIn again, sorry, and places like Facebook and everywhere else that they can kind of just spread the word. And I've never asked them to. It's just something that if you're excited about where you work, that's kind of you want your friends and other people to work with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said some of these. There's some great, I know not all of this generation, you guys that are here now are on Facebook, but there's some great diversity game Facebook pages that I really rely on. Of course, Discord groups for sure. Twitter, we were working with an esports company, and I had to really source a lot on Twitter because that's where they were. We try to go to where they are and dig deep in that space.
And I know it sounds like we touched on that a couple times too, is that we're a lot of the places that we're reaching out to or we're looking for people, it's like they're already in games, they're already working games. So is there anything that you can suggest to people that aren't in the industry yet? What if they're just starting out in their search?
I would say go to events, go to game jams, career fairs, find a mentor. This helps you in a few ways. It helps you network, it gets you new portfolio pieces, it helps you practice interviewing skills, and it helps you build relationships.
Yeah, relationships are key, right? For everything you'll ever do, right? So I always say show up to any game events. If you don't have any in the town you're in, start a game meetup. There's a lot of people who probably would appreciate that. If you're an introvert, that's really your superpower because you can really focus on what you're doing. But when you go to any of these meetups or game jams, I always say, come prepared with maybe in your head 3 questions that you can be ready to ask at any time. Because if you're in a situation where you don't know who's sitting next to you, you can come up with like, oh, what game are you working on? Or what are you using, Unity or Unreal? Just get the conversation started. And a lot of times that's a relief for everybody in the room or anybody you're next to talking. I also like to go to events and kind of force myself and go, okay, here are my 3 questions I'm going to ask, just to have in my back pocket. But also I'm going to meet 6 people before I leave this thing tonight. So I'm competitive with myself and try to come up with the 6 people I've met at that event.
That's awesome advice, even at any level, I think. Yeah. Definitely. So next I want to touch on the interview process. So what's it like when, there's a match, there's a job the recruiter wants to have a call. So what is it like when you're ready to start the interview process? So how does it start off?
Absolutely. Internally really is recruiting first. We do the whole verbal checkbox, the actual human being. And then from there, the hiring manager. And then if that goes well, then we go into a panel interview, which will be a full loop interview, mostly 5 hours, depending on the studio. And then from there will be a hire, no hire decision.
Yeah, and Alejandro mentioned the 5-hour interview. That's after 4 other interviews usually in this industry. So we like to try to be as thorough as possible in our pre-screen, our initial conversation with candidates, so that we can at least skip one step when submitting to our client and get the process moving a little more quickly.
And if the client wants to set up the interview, which happens every day, we like to prep our candidates beforehand. We go through a list of questions. Even the most seasoned developers or whatever, you know, it just really helps ease the interview process. I don't care how smart you are, in an interview process, your brain freezes. That's just human. So it's always good to practice, and we try to do that. And then afterwards, we have a debrief, so we can keep, you know, kind of hear what they're thinking. If they have new ideas or, you know, questions about that company they just interviewed. Yeah, we just kind of make sure we're aligning the whole process every step of the way.
I think that brings up a good point. What can the candidate do to prepare for the interview? So it sounds like some people do some preps. I'm curious what else could be suggested to a candidate to make sure that the interview goes smoothly. And are there any sort of things that hiring managers are looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, before anything, Cami, that was really well said. Honestly, as an interviewer, it's like much like public speaking. So practice and hone in your interview key talking points. You should be able to succinctly answer your questions relating to your experience. Practice explaining the challenges you've had, right? And how your company or how you as a person have grown into something better after that.
You know, find out as much as you can about the role. I've had a couple people who have just shown up to the interview and not even really known what they were there for. And that's an instant downer. So, you know, just absolutely do your research.
Yep, and I'll say just some of the things I thought were obvious, but maybe not. Everything's been on video over the last couple of years, so look professional, don't vape, don't eat. Believe me, things have happened. So, yeah, just make sure you show up like you would to an in-person interview.
So there's a couple other things, you know, besides the obvious things, you know, do your research on the company itself, understand the culture, you know, understand the project or the company's product, know the games, play the games. Do your research on the interviewers that are, you know, you're going to be talking to. Go to LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn, sorry, we're definitely plugging them today. You know, have excitement for the role. Be there, be jazzed. Pay full attention, turn off Discord, turn off your phone, you know, Slack, everything. Definitely be yourself. You know, just, you're going to be working with these people for 40 hours a week. So, you know, you want to be your genuine self. And there's also additional things. Speak to your experiences in general. Wrap your answers up in a past story if you can. This helps see the context of something you've done personally and allows us to dig deeper if we want details. And play up your successes. This is really important. You know, you have done awesome things, and you should be proud of that. So, you know, just brag about it. What this does is help me look for character traits and competencies. So, just for an example, you know, did you build a custom engine just because? This shows me that you've got a growth mindset, that you're driven, that you're curious. Do you work with artists, engineers, and producers? This shows me that you can cross communicate and you can work in groups. It's not just can you do the job that we're hiring for, but how can you complement and add to the studio's team and value.
Oops. Yeah, adding value, that one's huge. So I always suggest that people write things down the night before, because bringing things back from your long-term memory can be really hard. So if you prepare for it, then you'll have all of those top of mind when you go into the interview. And also, one other thing I want to add is ask questions, be curious. So at the end, you never want to go, do you have any questions for me? And then you're like, no. And then that's it. Prepare some questions before as well. So
that's super important. I can't stress how much you need to ask questions. Yes.
And so I want to bring up testing. Tests can be a reality in the industry. Some studios do them, some studios don't. So this is actually geared more towards hiring managers. So what advice do you have for hiring managers that come to you and say, hey, I want to give a test for this role?
I would actually ask that you think about if you really need to test at all, because many companies are ditching them and a lot of candidates won't take them anymore. And if you really feel that you do need to give them, you need to let recruiters and candidates know that you're going to give a test right away, because it's just a waste of your time if you get through a phone screen and they just won't test it and they won't take it, and you've just wasted both parties' times.
Mm-hmm. And so what if a test is part of the process? How should a candidate prepare if they have to take one?
Well, I think that, the best way to do that is to understand the product that they make and understand, again, the position that you're going for very well. Do the research on the position, because you may be able to, combine the two, and it would help you, give you an advantage possibly.
I'd like to follow up with that. Ask questions again.
Yep.
If you're taking a test and you don't know what you don't know, ask questions. If they can't answer it, then they can't answer it for you. And if they can, then you've got an answer to the question. So be curious.
Can I just jump in there? Mm-hmm. You should never be afraid to ask a hiring manager and or a recruiter a question, because that's just really good. And don't be afraid. Mm-hmm. It shows that you're interested in the job.
Absolutely. Really well said, Nelly.
All right, so candidates interviewed, they've taken the test, the team is deliberating on next steps, maybe they're talking to a couple other candidates as well about the same role. So how do you all make sure that a candidate has a good experience as they interview? What are some things that you all do personally for candidate experience?
A lot of communication. Give a 48-hour turnaround time on a decision if they're the only candidate. If they're not the only candidate, it comes down to transparency. Let them know. You don't want to basically dangle a carrot and just not communicate with them. It's really disrespectful for you to just for people's time, for them not to have it.
Yeah, and as Nelly already mentioned, communication is key. Just keeping candidates in the loop. We will not ghost you. We'll make sure that we're following up regularly. If we haven't heard from a studio, we'll let you know we haven't heard, and that we'll have feedback as soon as we do hear. We will share it with you. And if we end up hearing from the client after you've interviewed and the interview didn't go as well as you'd hoped, we will still let you know, and we'll keep moving forward, keep pushing for the next opportunity.
So that brings me to the awkward piece that none of us like, is what do we have to do when we have to reject the candidate? Either skill set didn't align, or how do you reject a candidate? Is there anything that can be done to make sure that that's a constructive learning experience as opposed to a generic email?
I always collect feedback after an interview from the people that have interviewed them, and I curate it and I send it to the recruiter, and it depends if the person wants feedback or not. If they do, I'm always willing to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a recruiter, really appreciate what you just said. It is really important for people to be able to interview and grow from their experiences. Normally, most companies can never really send you as a boilerplate email saying, hey, it didn't work out this time, we're going to another candidate. But I ask you, every time you receive one of those emails, just go back and ask, hey, is there any feedback we can have? And normally, or ask them to go on the phone with them, right? Normally, we can talk to you about the experience, and over the phone, we can share with you what we can.
All right, so the flip side of that, interviews go really well, you're going to get an offer. So, woo! But before we dig into that, I think it's important to talk a little bit more about what the market's like right now. So, Cami, can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing?
Yeah, the market is hot. It's really active. It's almost exhausting. Studios have a lot of hires across the board. We're seeing that all over. But when we work with studios, when we sign up working with a studio, we really emphasize that they're ready to make the offer quickly. If they interview someone and they wait for weeks to come back with an offer, they're going to lose the candidate. Candidates don't have to wait anymore. If you're a tech artist, you can blink and someone will want to hire you, but you can probably have 2 or 3 offers by the end of a week. So if the first studio is taking its time, maybe they want to do another test, they're going to lose out.
Yep, and candidates are getting higher offers than we've seen, especially with multiple years of industry experience. So be adaptable. Like I mentioned earlier, remote work is huge. If a studio is able to accommodate that, some people are willing to take a little less on their base salary to get that other perk.
And obviously that's from the agency side, so I'm curious for those that are internal, what sort of things are you seeing?
People are getting the asks that they want. We have to be really flexible, and we have to be willing to work with them when it comes to work situations and salary asks,
Yeah, very much so. COVID has really changed the market. There is a lot more power to determine where we work from. It's really shifted the landscape on our end.
Awesome. Yeah, so it sounds like we have to move fast on candidates, and so if you're not getting the responses, feel free to follow up with your job postings, be curious, ask questions. We touched on flexibility. What are some things that you all do to make sure that things do keep moving along quickly?
Well, after an interview, I try to make sure that I have a follow-up meeting with the entire interview circuit the day after to get that feedback from them. I work with the recruiter instantly after that to try to give them an answer within, a day. 24 hours is almost my personal limit. Within 2 days is almost too much. And then, we move from there.
Exactly as it should be. Thank you so, as a recruiter, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. No, really, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Thank you. Good candidate experience is key. Good candidate experience is how we pretty much a metric for us. It's how we judge what a good recruit studio or a good recruiting experience is. And so, for us, it's really important to get back to you as soon as possible. And it is a goal of ours to make sure you have a good candidate experience.
And I know I touched on being curious and following up, but is there anything else that you all can recommend that a candidate do to help move things along?
Yes. If we're working with you and we're by the time this process is over, we've gotten to know each other pretty well because we've connected over the course of those 4 to 5 interviews before and after every call. If you are interviewing multiple places at one time, just keeping us in the loop as recruiters, letting us know if you're getting close to an offer, what your top choice studio looks like, and that way we can push on our side to get things moving faster in the process. And just being transparent. Transparency is key.
All right, so on that note, I said that we're moving to the offer phase. You touched on transparency, so let's talk money. What does everybody need to know when it comes to making an offer? Iris, you want to kick that one off?
Our goal is to have no surprises by the time we get to the offer. The first time I talk to you, if you're my candidate, we are going to talk money. We're going to ask what you're looking for, we can't legally ask where you are currently. Some people volunteer that information. But we ask what you're looking for. If it's completely out of left field, they'll be like, that's not really what we're seeing in the market. Most people know where they're at and what they need to take a little step up. It's important not to go way out of range, but also not to, undersell yourself. Make sure you're asking for what you're worth in the market, and every step of the way we're going to talk about this money. Every time I prep you for an interview, every time I debrief you for an interview, I'm going to ask and make sure, hey, this is the compensation we discussed. And then I'm going to keep, reiterating that to the client. That way, when we do get to the offer, there are no surprises. It's the offer you were asking for. The client knew from the beginning, you knew, and hopefully it's a done deal and everyone can celebrate the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely important to celebrate, and every studio is going to be a little bit different, but the resounding be curious, ask questions, transparency. Anyone else, any other things that we want to touch on that piece?
Definitely, I agree with you. Starting the conversation in the beginning, a lot of these negotiations or just not being able to develop a good offer package takes a while. It's not we can just flip it over and switch. Really, definitely do your research on your end. Every state has different laws for when asking for compensation. I recommend you looking at those. California has some really good ones. honestly, us recruiters, we can't really ask you, what are you making right now? So really, we're going to be asking you is, what are you target? What are you hoping to achieve out of this?
And I know another part of compensation is benefits. So does anyone want to talk a little bit about how those can play a factor?
Yeah, well, maybe what 401k, is it matching? What health benefits? Is it pay your spouse? Is there relocation money? Is there a signing bonus? What is the bonus structure like annually across that? Some startups are going to offer stock options. Lately, I've been seeing NFTs be part of the package. You just have to know what your motivating factor is, be real clear, and communicate that to whoever you're working with.
And then we always get a couple questions after everything's said and done. The offer's out, signed, everybody's good and ready to go. They got their start date. There are some common questions like PTO, and I've got this wedding coming up, and I only accrue it at this rate. How do I take the time off? So that's one I get a lot. Do you want to touch on that one? Like, what's the...
Just ask. Just, it's okay, and, nobody's going to be mad. Just be upfront about what you need, off before you get the job. Nobody's going to be mad. Just ask and be transparent.
Mm-hmm. Same things have happened with holidays. Like, they're not fully written out in the benefits package, but you can always ask, like, what holidays do I get? And we can send you those kind of lists. All right. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I am going to wrap this up with final words for those who are looking in their job search. If anyone has questions after this, we welcome you to come up here and ask us. So feel free, we'll all be up here. You can come up and ask, be curious and ask whatever you'd like. But so final parting words for those who are starting their search. Any practical advice that you'd like to share with the group before we wrap up?
I'll just say, don't beat yourself up. It's a tough industry to break into, but there are a lot of resources out there. Find a mentor, connect with us. Maybe we can connect you with a mentor, and just keep trying. You'll land somewhere eventually. The industry needs you.
Yeah, keep building that, working on that portfolio. Keep doing game jams. A lot of times companies will go, we want to see what they're doing outside of their work. They want to know that you're still really obsessed with making games, right? But also take advantage of if you went to college or wherever you went, go to LinkedIn. They have that alumni button on that college website, and you can click on the alumni and filter it out to see who might be in the industry that you might reach out to. They may not respond, but you never know. It's a way to say, hey, would you mind taking a half hour to just give me some feedback on my resume or my portfolio or my Git, whatever. But build those relationships up.
Well said. It is a marathon, not a sprint. Make sure that you keep yourself fed, motivated, and make sure to improve yourself, right? From my experience, it takes people about 2 to 3 years after school to be able to ramp themselves up to a place where I can hire them. Schools are really there to make sure you know the foundation of what you're getting into, but it's going to be up to you to put yourself in a position where someone like me can say, yeah, please bring this person over here.
And I would say, just continue to network, hone your craft. I mean, everything that these folks said is absolutely true, and just be yourself and continue to march forward. We need you all in the industry, and it's exciting that we have new blood all the time, and you're going to make awesome stuff. So I can't wait to work with you all.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming to our talk.